RoadRunners Unfiltered podcast. We have the fabulous Farah
Hi.
with us. Really excited about this episode and excited about what you're going to bring to this episode. And I'm just glad to have folks coming in and being a part of what I'm trying to build with RoadRunners Unfiltered, this new era of RoadRunners Unfiltered. So welcome. Happy to have you. Let's talk. So tell me about, let me get it right, Runners Rising.
Yeah. So Runners Rising, I currently work with Runners Rising as the director of marketing and social media. And originally I was the director of business outreach, still helping out a lot with that right now until we filled that role, but doing a little bit of both. And so as many of you may know, NIL is taking college sports by, what's the word? By storm.
Yes,
you know, like
absolutely.
it's definitely coming in, and it's playing a huge role in like where high school athletes are committing, where athletes are going to school, like, and where they're transferring to. And I know like recently we've experienced the impacts of NIL in terms of like who's entered the transferred portal and who's left our school. And so it's been very interesting working with an NIL collective, because something I'll give Runners Rising, for those of you who don't know, NIL, which is name, image, and likeliness, is a way for college athletes to get paid for being a college athlete. Originally, prior to NIL being established, it was, you know, the school, I don't want to say owned you, but you were
They owned us. They owned us. Yes.
They owned the student athletes. And so with NIL now coming into play, athletes can now make money off of who they are, off of the name that they've established for themselves. Big ones that I can name off of the top of my head: Frank Harris, JT Clark, Joshua Cephas, Zachary Franklin, who will be missed. But, you know, those are quick to come to mind as to names who are taking advantage of NIL.
Right.
And so UTSA has three main collectives. I work with Runners Rising, which was the first NIL collective established for UTSA athletes. And so we work to help all athletes. We try to focus on making sure that everybody gets the love. No, football is king, of course, but, you know, we try to spread the love because all athletes do get NIL. And also, like, our baseball team's killer. Our women's basketball is on the rise. Track and field is also killing the game. Like, so is golf. Wow, we have a lot going on at UTSA.
Right.
Now that you say it out loud. But we work a lot to, of course, help these athletes. We provide a lot of mentoring, interview and resume help, variety of other things. We just try as much as we can to help the athlete and do the best that we can to help them grow throughout their short time, especially, you know, like you had mentioned, preparing them for what comes after. Because a lot of people don't, you know, if you don't go pro, what do you do? So you have a college degree, take advantage of that college degree regardless of what it's in.
Right. And so I want to go into two separate areas, right? So one thing I want to know, and I don't want to know anything specific in terms of who gets paid what and things like that, but like, what, from a range standpoint, what are some of these athletes getting paid? Because I think about myself, like one of the things the original 18 guys always talk about is like, damn, we really missed out on making some money, especially with the whole backdrop of being the original 18 and things like that. What is a range that some folks, just not necessarily, you don't have to go to UTSA, but just in general, I'm sure you guys have done research on like what other schools and what other players from other programs are getting paid. What type of money is coming into them?
So, I mean, going off the top of my head, let's think AAC, just because I've done a pretty decent amount of research for AAC. And I'm going to give like general ranges because I do not know the exact amounts, and these are just what's listed online. So take, for example, SMU. SMU's got money, right? It's the same thing as like if you're thinking about UT, A&M, like their players are getting paid money. And SMU has the money. They have the alumni that pay. And so I know for them across their football team specifically, they're starting out as like across the board, all of their players, not even like your quarterback, wide receivers, big name players. They're starting at about anywhere from 20 to 40 grand.
Wow.
In NIL a year.
Wow.
And then your more popular sports. So I know like football will always probably be getting the most.
Right.
But I mean, if you look at LSU right now, football isn't getting the most in NIL. It's their gymnastics and
Really?
their women's basketball team. Yeah. Angel Reese.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, Angel Reese is leading the nation in NIL right now.
What is she making?
She's, I think last I heard was around 5 mil.
Holy shit.
She was in an interview a couple weeks ago, and I remember watching it, and she was just like, somebody was asking her about when she's going to go pro, and she had compared it to like,
Why go pro?
Why go pro?
Exactly.
Because I mean, like, that's another thing is like women's basketball professionally, you're not
No.
making much money.
No.
So it's like, she's making 7 figures chilling
Right.
as a college athlete. She's living the dream. She's getting her education. She's doing what she loves, and she's making a bag out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's insane. So SMU, you said those guys are making around 20 to 40 grand.
Yeah. That's just starting.
That's just starting.
Yeah, and that's
It's
like
insane.
taking into consideration, like, because I know some of our guys have done this as well, is going out into the community and actually talking to businesses and seeing like if they'd be interested in working with them. And so awesome for our guys doing that, because take advantage of the fact that you
Yeah.
have the ability to do this now,
Yeah.
right? Don't wait for these businesses to come to you. And this doesn't just go for football. Across the board, there's a lot of businesses that want to work with just women or
Right.
just want to do like, don't necessarily want to do football. Because, I mean, if we go back to San Antonio as a whole, we're a basketball city. We have the Spurs. That's
Right.
all we've known. That's why we don't have a pro football team. Like, the closest thing to a football team we have right now is UTSA. So it's like
Yeah.
our basketball players, our women's athletes, all across the board, including football, go out into these businesses. If people aren't reaching out to you, it is the worst thing anybody can tell you is no.
Right.
Right? Like, that's the first thing that I was told when applying to jobs. So I don't necessarily know, like, what will happen if I were to, you know, from the perspective of an athlete, like, what happens when you go and ask for an NIL deal?
Right.
I've only been on the side where we're giving them. I've been on the side where some businesses have told me no when I've been trying to get them to work with some student athletes. But, you know, it's important to just go out and shoot your shot. Really, the worst thing that could happen is somebody says no.
Shoot or shoot. As a follow-up question to that, in terms of that business support, though, I know, I guess, what has been your experience with that? Are a lot of companies and businesses around San Antonio like really open to working with these players, or have you gotten a lot of pushback on it?
So I've gotten, like, it's pretty split right now. We have, like, a good amount of businesses who are, like, when you're looking at, like, your alumni-based businesses, right? So, like, businesses owned by UTSA alumni. So, like, big name right now, Insira, right? April Insira has killed the game. She's been helping student athletes.
Super nice lady. I really like her.
She's awesome. But she's been helping in terms of even, like, I saw her help one of our football players with an internship.
Really?
So
Nice.
that was great to see on Twitter. I know she's kills the game in terms of, like, helping out. Same thing with Pat Klein's. Both have helped a lot with NIL and, like, getting students their money and also, like, just, you know, helping out in general. So obviously, you know, your really supportive alumni have been quick to hop on and, like, get involved in terms of NIL. But when you're talking about, like, the city as a whole, I think there's still, like, I think we need to buy into the city a little bit more. And by we, I mean, like, UTSA.
Right.
I think we still have, like, we've had a solid 3 years, right? You know, bowl games the past 3, championships, not just in football, but in soccer. We've killed it in golf. We're killing it in track and field. Women's basketball is on the rise. Like, we're doing great, right? But we still have some time to buy into the city and for the city to buy into us. Like, we were for the city. We got the Let's Go 210. We're killing it in terms of all of these other areas, but I feel like we can do more. And I think until that happens, it's going to take a second for businesses to buy into us. Some are surprised. I mean, like, I met with a business owner a couple weeks ago, and he ended up doing a deal with some of our women's basketball athletes. But I remember, was it women's basketball? Don't quote me on that. But he had, him and I were talking, and he was like, he had gone to UTSA early 2000s. So he was, like, just left right when we got a football team.
Right.
And so when him and I were talking, and I brought up, I was like, oh, like, do an event for, like, football, do a meet and greet. People are going to come, they're going to buy a drink or something like that. You know, you get the business, football players get the exposure, and they also get paid for doing the meet and greet. And so he told me, he was like, why would I do football? Like, our football team sucks. And I was like, sucks, back-to-back championships. Like, what do you mean? And so it was very surprising, like, because some people don't realize the success that we're accomplishing as a program.
Right.
And I know, like, we plaster it, but also, like, I've seen like 3 UNT billboards around San Antonio. And I know we have a couple of UTSA ones, but like this should be home. Like this should be, we should have flags flying from every building. We should have, you know, the little posters. We should have billboards everywhere. Like this is our town. The fact that UNT's billboards were here is kind of surprising and upsetting. So it's like we can do a bit more when it comes to our marketing communications to really paint it throughout the city that like this is UTSA's town.
Exactly.
Just like how Austin is UT's town and UNT has Denton and so on and so forth.
Right. And so I want to go back, take a step back because I remember what I went blank about. I want to talk about financial literacy and like these athletes getting this money and like what are they doing with it? Like obviously they're grown, they can do what they want, but I can tell you right now, if you'd have gave me 20 to 40 grand and I didn't have to like worry about rent and stuff like that in college at the time, I probably would have spent that money on Lord knows what.
So
is there any coaching on that front of like, hey, save your money, you know, that type of thing?
Yeah. So Runners Rising, we do that. Like for our really big deals, like if we're doing a smaller deal, we're not really going to go out and give you like the financial literacy because like, what are you going to, but in terms of our bigger deals, we've definitely like provided the option. And also just going back to Steph has killed it, right? Like she provides the financial literacy. She's provided resume workshops. She's provided LinkedIn workshops. Like she has like a whole calendar that I know she spends a whole summer building and just like putting together for these athletes. Do they take advantage of it? I do not know. That is not
But they at least have the option.
But they have the option and it is provided to them.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I wish I would have had the opportunity to see what that was like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have probably went crazy. I remember whenever we would go to, or whenever back in the day we get like a Pell Grant or whatever, the money we had left over, we went to the San Marcos outlets and blew it all. Like within the same day we got the check.
Not the Pell Grants.
Yeah, the Pell Grant. We were spending that money on stuff we had no business spending it on. I want to switch subjects. Though. I want to go into UTSA Twitter because it's one of the things that keeps me the most entertained.
Yeah.
And you are a catalyst in that whole realm. So I guess talk to me a little bit about the status of UTSA Twitter and your popularity within it.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'll give a little bit of background in terms of me as to like so that it like kind of fits in with the story.
Right.
So I got my undergrad from UTSA. It was in finance and management, and I graduated this past December. And during my time, during my time there, I was really involved on campus. To start out, it was with Business Student Council, and then from there, I got elected as our College of Business Senator into Student Government Association. And from there, I was appointed as the Chief Justice so I oversaw elections, stuff like that. Super fun time. But right around the time buried Dr. McKinley, may he rest in peace, he was very, very involved with student traditions. Like, this was a huge part. I know student activities is like, you know, that's what they do, but like Barry loved everything about the student experience. Like his goal was to make it the best possible experience for every student. And so it was definitely a loss that the school took when he passed, but you know, hopefully the traditions carry on. Yep. But so Barry, super involved, and he started something called the Spirit Advisory Board. And so it was where students who were not athletes and students who were athletes could come together to like discuss, figure out like what traditions, what can we do to get athletics and, you know, your regular like student more involved together. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like athletes are busy, right?
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize how busy these athletes are, but like, what is it? They get up to work out at, well, like, let's take a football player schedule, because I've been to y'all's practices and senior schedules a little bit more. But, you know, they wake up at 6 a.m., they have practice probably waking up around 5 in reality because you're reporting to the field at 6.
Well, you got breakfast. You got mandatory breakfast first.
Yeah.
At 5:30. Yeah. And
Forget
then
about that
practice.
one.
Yeah.
So you're talking about waking up at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You're getting to campus. You're getting there. You have your breakfast, and then you're reporting to practice, and then you're at practice till like, I think I would show up right at the end of practice around like 8:39.
Yeah.
And then they would have weights. So you would go to your locker room, shower, whatever, and then you would head on over to weights, and then whoever had class would go to class, and then you would wait till your like weight schedule, whatever. You would have to go to class, and then you would come back for your like mandatory study hour, which you would have to do, and then after that it was like homework or whatever, and then if you had like practice or anything else like weightlifting, depends, like
film study
yeah. Or like plays, whatever, there's a variety of things that you would have to meet for, and you'd have to go back for that, and then it's like, okay, well, you have practice again at 4 or you have to get up at 4 in the morning again, so you're in bed by like 9 or 10.
Yep.
So it's like, while other students are out here like really experiencing college, so partying it up, doing whatever, tailgating before a football game, these guys are like busting their butts. Again, this is just a football player schedule, but like across the board for all athletes, it's pretty much the same.
Right.
And so we started I started learning a lot more about like the athlete experience and exactly what the athletes were going for, especially when I started meeting. So I met a ton of our football players, soccer, women's basketball, just across the board from all of our sports. And so it was an awesome experience to learn, just because you don't really, I'm like, oh, you're a student athlete, you just show up for the games. Like,
right.
But you don't really take into account how much more goes into it.
Yes.
So I learned that, and so Barry had this committee, and so we were trying to figure out, like, what cool things could we really do, especially when, like, football blew up in 2021. Like, students started showing up for the game. They had to expand the student section to the second floor, and they were like, we don't know what we're doing here. And you also have a lot of students who would show up to these games, and they wouldn't know anything, like, the chants or anything like that. They would just, like, kind of show up. Or, like, for the example, you don't cheer on offense. Like, please stay quiet on offense.
Right, yes.
And so Barry had these awesome signs made that were, like, quiet on offense and then, like, get loud on defense. And so he put me right in the front row at the championship game against Western Kentucky. And so I was right there in the front, and I'm, like, holding up these signs and, like, telling people to shut up and, like, teaching them the chants.
Right.
So, like, when Sosa plays this, we do this, and, like, all of this stuff. And so I think it was the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth. Barry comes up to me, and he was like, we need to do something cool. And I would like to disclose, because I don't think I've told anybody this, well, like, my friends know. But this was a very, like, very spur of the moment. I was like, I don't know what to do. And so Barry and I were talking, like, right here, and he was like, we should do something like, I wish the dome would, like, turn off its lights. And I was like, well, if you turn on the flashlights, blah, 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 everybody, like, if we just do the student section, it'll be enough. And so he was like, how are you going to get all of the students to turn on their flashlights? And I was like, Barry, it's me. Like, I can get people to listen. Like, we're fine. And so he was like, okay, just wait till the next Sosa song. And I honestly, it was, what is that Lil Nas song? It was with Industry Baby.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Okay.
I hope. But so that song starts playing, and I'm like rushing through the student section. I was like, wait for me to turn my flashlight on, and then everybody else follow along. Right. And so I turned my flashlight on, and the entire student section just starts like lighting it up. And I had like these other like really obnoxious like frat guys who were like, I just got them in on it too. And so they forced their entire frat and the sorority and whoever with them. So everyone just obviously started following along. And so the entire student section is like lit up. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you see the whole dome turn on, and and you just see like the guys like kind of freeze on the field, and everyone's like looking at the lights like, what the hell's going on? And so Barry is like jumping up and down on the field, and he was like, you did this. Yeah. And so I remember just going on my Twitter, and like I was tweeting to nobody at this point. Like I had like maybe 50 followers or something like that. And I just go on my Twitter, and I was like, to my 50 followers, I was like, I just did those lights. And like the signal sucks in the dome. So it's like, I don't think the tweet went through. And so fast forward to like, so the game ended like 30, 40 minutes later. We rushed the field, whatever. And I think I went to go post a picture of me and one of my friends on my Twitter, and the tweet had gone through. And all of a sudden I have like 200 more followers. People are sending me this video, and they're like, you did the lights. And then all of these people are like, you started Light the Dome. And I'm like, what the hell is Light the Dome?
That's crazy.
It was like this whole thing. And so then I go home, I go to sleep. And then the next day, my friend sends me this clip from the post-game interview where Traylor, I think it was Rashad, and I forget who were the other two players. I'm assuming Frank was one of them and then one more person. And they had talked about the lights. And so they sent me this clip, and they were like, they're talking about your lights. And so Barry, the next day,
That's
or like
insane.
the week later, we went to something at athletics, and he introduces me to everyone as Lights Girl. it was a whole thing. For a solid like 6 months, I was referred to as Lights
Girl, okay.
And so they, obviously that like kind of like put me on the map, because then from there I was like, all these people were like paying attention to my Twitter, was posting stuff. Like I was no longer talking to 50 people. Like,
so you went from Lights Girl to arguing with Tennessee fans.
I was still arguing.